How many nights have you whispered prayers into the darkness, waiting for an answer that never seems to come? You speak to God with all the faith in your heart, pouring out your deepest longings, your fears, your dreams. Yet silence fills the space where you hope to hear His voice. The quiet stretches on, and doubt begins to creep in like shadows at twilight. Maybe you've wondered if your prayers are even reaching heaven, or if God has somehow forgotten your name. But what if I told you that the very way you've been praying might be the barrier between you and the divine conversation you've been longing for? What if the silence isn't rejection, but preparation? You thought God forgot you, but maybe silence isn't absence. Maybe it's the sound of your heart being prepared for something far more sacred than you ever imagined. You know that feeling, don't you? When you've poured your soul out in prayer, expecting some clear sign, some unmistakable voice, some burning bush moment that will confirm God is listening. Instead, you're met with what feels like cosmic silence. Your prayers seem to echo back to you unchanged, and you begin to question everything. Did you say the right words? Are you worthy enough to receive an answer? Is your faith too small, too weak, too broken to bridge the gap between earth and heaven? The nights feel endless when you're waiting for God to speak. You lie awake, replaying conversations with the divine that feel one-sided. You analyze every coincidence, every random thought, every fleeting moment of peace, wondering if that might be God trying to get through to you. But then morning comes, and uncertainty returns like fog rolling over still water. You find yourself asking the question that haunts every seeking heart. Would you still trust divine timing if it meant waiting longer than you hoped? Would you still believe in a God who speaks if His voice came in whispers rather than thunder? Sometimes the most profound conversations happen not through words, but through presence. Think about the people in your life who know you best. The ones who can sit with you in comfortable silence, who understand your heart even when you can't find the right words to express what you're feeling. Their love isn't diminished by the absence of constant chatter. In fact, it's often in the quiet moments that you feel most connected, most understood, most loved. Maybe that's the secret you've been missing about prayer. Maybe God's love for you isn't measured by how loudly He speaks, but by how present He remains in the silence. Consider this possibility. What if God has been speaking to you all along, but in a language your anxious heart hasn't learned to recognize yet? What if His voice isn't the booming, unmistakable sound you've been expecting, but something far more intimate? Something that sounds like peace settling into your chest when you didn't think peace was possible. Something that feels like hope rising in your spirit when circumstances suggested despair. Something that looks like doors opening just when you thought all paths were blocked. Maybe that's why it's been taking so long. Not because heaven is ignoring you, but because heaven has been building your heart first, preparing the soil of your soul to receive seeds too precious to waste on unprepared ground. Every season of silence has been tilling the earth of your spirit, removing the stones of distraction, the weeds of worry, the thorns of past disappointments. Because when God finally speaks in the way you'll recognize, He wants to make sure you're ready to hear not just His voice, but His heart. Our minds crave quick answers, instant gratification, immediate confirmation that we're on the right path. We live in a world of notifications and instant replies, where silence often signals rejection or abandonment. But faith teaches us to sit with questions until peace becomes the answer. It invites us to trust that divine timing operates on a different frequency than human impatience. What feels like delay to us might actually be perfect orchestration in the hands of someone who sees the entire symphony while we're focused on a single note. Here's what I've discovered about the art of hearing God speak back. It's not about perfecting your prayer technique or finding the right spiritual formula. It's about creating space in your soul for something beyond words to take root. It's about learning to recognize His voice in the language He's always been using. The gentle nudge toward forgiveness when your heart wanted to hold a grudge. The sudden surge of courage when fear tried to paralyze you. The unexpected peace that washed over you in the middle of a storm you thought would destroy you. Maybe it was never about waiting for God to speak. Maybe it was about learning to listen with more than your ears. Maybe the conversation you've been longing for has been happening all along, written in the margins of your daily life, whispered through moments of unexpected grace, spoken through the people who showed up exactly when you needed them most. Maybe his voice sounds like the wisdom that rises in your heart when you're facing an impossible decision, or the comfort that surrounds you when grief threatens to swallow you whole. One day, you'll look back on this season of apparent silence and realize something beautiful. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of preparation, full of growth, full of the slow, steady work of transformation that can only happen in the sacred space of waiting. You'll understand that the silence wasn't God's absence, but His presence. In a form you hadn't learned to recognize yet. It was the sound of your roots growing deeper, your faith expanding wider, your heart becoming strong enough to hold the conversation you'd been asking for all along. If this message reached you at the right time, take it as a quiet sign. Your waiting isn't wasted. You're being prepared for something sacred. Write Amen in the comments if you receive this message with faith, and subscribe for more reflections like this. Let's keep walking this path of peace and purpose together. Keep walking this path of peace and purpose together. The truth about divine conversation isn't found in the volume of heaven's voice, but in the depth of your willingness to receive what's already being given. Every moment you've spent questioning whether God hears you has actually been preparation for understanding how He speaks, not through the dramatic revelations you expected, but through the gentle transformation happening within you as you learn to listen with your whole being. Think about the most meaningful conversations you've ever had with someone you love deeply. They weren't always filled with constant words. Sometimes the most profound communication happened in shared silence, in understanding glances, in the comfort of simply being present with each other. The love wasn't diminished by quiet moments. It was often in those spaces between words that you felt most connected, most understood, most cherished. This is the mystery you've been trying to solve. Divine communication operates on frequencies your hurried heart is just beginning to tune into. While you've been listening for thunder, heaven has been speaking in whispers. While you've been searching for burning bushes, the sacred has been revealing itself in ordinary moments, touched by extraordinary grace. Maybe the answer you've been seeking isn't a voice at all, but a presence. Not words that fill the air, but peace that fills the spaces anxiety used to occupy. Not dramatic signs that confirm your prayers reached their destination, but gentle shifts in your spirit that reveal they were heard the moment they left your heart. Consider the possibility that every season of apparent silence has been teaching you something essential about the nature of authentic connection. In relationships that matter most, communication flows both ways, but not always in the same form. Sometimes love speaks through patient waiting. Sometimes wisdom arrives as gentle knowing. Sometimes comfort comes disguised as unexpected strength rising within you when you thought you had nothing left to give. So the next time you find yourself asking why heaven feels quiet, remember this truth. The conversation you've been longing for isn't waiting to begin. It's been unfolding all along in ways your heart is finally learning to recognize. Your prayers were never lost in the silence. They were being answered in the language of transformation, peace, and divine presence that speaks louder than words ever could.